Hi, my name is Matthew Lott, and I'm an attorney here at Lott Law Firm. And one of our primary areas of practice is an area of law called Longshore. That has a interesting name, but it's basically workers' compensation cases for employers and employees who work near the water. Longshore is an area of law governed by the federal government under the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor has several sections located all over the United States, mostly near areas near the water, such as the Atlantic Ocean, Gulf of Mexico, even near lakes. Anytime an employer, mostly shipbuilding, but it can be other things as well. It can be the oil industry, it can be fishing industry, those sorts of things. But you're basically located on a wharf or a dock, and you're working near the water. So we are located in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and Pascagoula is home to one of the largest shipyards in the United States. And most, not all, but most of the workers that work at this shipyard in Pascagoula, Mississippi, are covered by the Longshore statutes. And Longshore simply means that if you're injured on the job, then your employer is mandated by the federal government to provide you certain benefits. And as long as your injury is related to your job, then they have to provide you 2/3 of your average weekly wage and also medical benefits. Now, there's two distinct areas related to workers' compensation and longshore claims for employers near the water. One is called a scheduled injury and the other is called a whole body injury. Scheduled injuries are related to your extremities, basically from your shoulder down to your fingers, your toes, your feet, your legs, and other certain body parts like your eyes and your ears. And anytime there's a scheduled injury, then the federal government has said that you're entitled to a certain percentage of your wages to be paid to you if you've lost any use of those body parts. It's very specific. There's really not a lot of room for wavering, and most of the time you don't even need an attorney for that. Now, if there's a dispute about how much you're owed, then you certainly need to look into hiring an attorney, or at least talk to an attorney. And your medical benefits also have to be provided. So you get the doctor of your own choice, and you get to see that doctor and continue care until you heal. If you don't heal and you can't go back to work, and your injury is related to a whole body injury, then that is covered under separate statutes. A whole body injury is anything not related to your extremities. Most of whole body injuries are neck injuries, head injuries, lower back injuries, and shoulder injuries. Those are the main areas. But if you, for instance, have a cervical injury, a neck injury is what a cervical spine injury is. If you have a neck injury on the job and you can't go back to work, well, then we have to look at what you're able to make out in the community. If you have a whole body injury, then you're entitled to the 2/3 difference between what you were making pre-injury versus what you can make post-injury. Now, the calculations are really simple if you actually go back to work. So, for instance, you have a lower back injury, you can't do your pre-injury employment. For instance, let's just say you're a welder on a shipyard, at a shipyard. If you have a low back injury and the doctor says you can't go back to work, well, then we have to go out in the community and see what you potentially could make. If you actually do go out and make wages, then your employer at the time of your injury has to pay you 2/3 of the difference between what you were making before the injury versus what you were making after the injury. However, a lot of times people can't actually go back to work. So we have to go out in the community and say, what potential jobs could you do? What fit within your limitations that your doctor gave you? Your doctor will also give you what's called a maximum medical improvement date. That's just a date in which you plateaued in your recovery. For instance, you have a low back injury, and he says you've you've improved as much as you can, and it's being treated with medications or other types of treatment, or you've even had surgery. And he says that you have recovered and you've gotten the best that you can do. Well, he's going to put you at maximum medical improvement, and that's just a date that we use during the course of a longshore claim. And he will also give you an impairment rating. That impairment rating is a percentage about how much loss of use to your lower back that you've had, for instance. And it could be assigned to any body part, your fingers, your toes, your left arm, your right arm, whatever the case may be, okay? Now, most injuries result in the worker being able to go back to work. If you go back to work to your pre-injury job, then you're not entitled to any further wage benefits. However, if you continue to treat medically for your condition, then your employer has unlimited liability for your injury. So for instance, if before the injury you weren't taking any pain medication, and then after the injury you have to take some certain kinds of pain medications, well, your employer is on the hook for that for as long as you need it, and as long as your doctor says you need it. So certain workers will want to just go back to work, get their benefits, and keep moving on. And you don't really need a lawyer for that for the most part. However, there are certain procedural requirements, and you may want to at least consult with a lawyer to see if that is needed. However, certain workers that can't go back to work or may have diminished ability to work, even though they may be at their same employer, they really need to consult with a lawyer and make sure that they're protected. Because, unfortunately, your employer views you just like in a piece of equipment. And if you get injured, then they may look at you with a little bit of a diminished value, okay? Especially older workers that are getting towards retirement, they may want to move those types of workers out of the system. That's very unfortunate, but it's really how our system works for the most part. And especially when you have insurance companies who are counting every dollar, and adjusters who are really trying to maximize the amount of profits that the insurance companies make. They really want to make sure that they don't have any liability for future injuries on the job, okay? Now, if you have a whole body injury, lower back, neck, that sort of thing, and you cannot go back to work, you really need to consult with a lawyer. There's no doubt about that. And the reason is because you're entitled to probably substantial benefits in the future, and also the employer will look to diminish those potential benefits by getting you to a doctor of their own choosing, which they have the right to do, and also pushing you towards work that you may not be actually capable of doing, okay? Also, many workers, if they can't go back to work, will get terminated. And that's just unfortunately part of the process. If you cannot return to your pre-injury job, then an employer may terminate you and let you go. That is traumatic for a lot of workers, especially if you've been there for many years. However, it's just part of the process, and you're still entitled to your wages from that employer. And the wages are set at 2/3 of your average weekly wage. Also, if there's a dispute about your wages or your medications or any kind of surgeries that your doctor recommends, well then Longshore lawyer that's knowledgeable about this particular area of the law can ask for an informal conference with a claims examiner. And that claims examiner is a person that's assigned by the Department of Labor, United States government, to oversee these types of claims. And then if we can't resolve it at the claims examiner level, well, then we can actually go and talk to a judge and try to get it resolved. Judges try these types of cases all the time. That's really all they do. These particular types of judges, they actually work for the federal government under the Department of Labor and really only hear these types of cases. However, they really try to push everybody towards a settlement, and the judges actually may come to our location and talk to us to try to get it resolved. But this is a very specific area of law. There's a lot of specific procedures that many lawyers aren't very knowledgeable about, and so you need to talk to an attorney that specializes in this type of area called longshore cases. Thank you.